All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Um, Welcome to everybody who's here. Oh, all right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Uh, Looks like we've got about half the class here, which is when I've done this in the past, generally about what we tend to get. Um, so welcome to everyone who's here. Good to see everybody back after a week. Um, and just, again, by way of reminder, and what I sent out in my little remind message is that, the model we are going to use going forward is that I will be here on Tuesday nights at this time, and it is sort of up to you to decide if you want to join us in real time on Tuesday nights, or to just get caught up the day after with the videos from the class and kind of go from there. And it doesn't have to be the same decision every week. It's really up to you and what you feel is going to work best and support you best from week to week. So I'm going to kind of dive right in. What I always like to start every week with is a chance for anybody who has any questions or concerns or anything that came up from the previous week's work or anything like that to give you an opportunity to ask those questions. If you have the question, it's very likely that someone else in the class might have the exact same question. So I'd like to kind of address these as they come up. So we'll start with that, and then I'll just sort of talk a little bit about what we're going to do tonight in the class, and then what the work is going to be for the coming week. So questions, concerns, anything that came up from the previous week's work, or anything that you have at all as we're heading forward? Pretty silent group tonight. I guess that is a good sign. So, as always, feel free to jump in at any point if you do have questions or you need me to go back over something um, or anything like that. So, my plan for tonight, and again, I'm never going to plan to go all the way to the assigned time, which I think is 9 o'clock or something like that, or maybe even later. We'll take the time that we need to get through what we need to get through, but I'm not trying to hit any, keep us here until a specific time. So, my plan for tonight is to spend the first part of this evening kind of taking a look backwards to the previous week. There was reading to set the stage for basically for the whole course related to instructional design and what those two words mean and so on. So I want to have a bit of discussion about what people took away from that. I am going to, with the number of people we have here, I'm going to kind of divide that discussion into two groups, do a little bit of a breakout just to give people a chance to be able to participate in those discussions. And then we'll come back together and kind of debrief from those two discussions, and then also take a little bit of a look or a recap of essentially the questions that I asked in the discussion forum for this week. Now that we had write-ups on all those different types of instructional design models, what were the common threads that we saw going through them? And from that, I'll talk kind of a little bit about the framework that we're going to use for this course going forward over the next couple of months. So that's kind of the looking backwards piece, is looking at the reading and then looking at the discussions on the instructional design models. And then once we've gone through that, I want to take some time to kind of really introduce the instructional design plan project, which is really the major project for this course. Talk a little bit about how it's going to be structured and what kinds of things are going to be going on in what order. And that will then lead us to one of the two assignments for this week, which is I'm going to also use a discussion forum, although in some ways it's less about discussion and more about sort of bouncing ideas off of people I guess that's a discussion. But starting to think about what topic you would like to use as your instructional design project topic. And you'll be able to present some ideas and then hopefully get some feedback from other people in the class about those ideas, and help you start to really um, sort of focus down and pick an actual topic. And then there's an additional reading for next week that's going to kind of set the stage. So I'll talk a little bit about that too. So looking backward and looking forward, and then kind of putting it all together and taking a look at the work that will be happening for next week. So to get all of that going, let's see, what's the best way to do this? First of all, I'm gonna switch pages here and go to this. Yeah. So I'm gonna share our class. There we go. Share the class Blackboard page. You can certainly follow along there if you would like to, but I'll put it up here to share as well. Um, so the discussion from the reading, what I would like to do is there's basically obviously two words, instructional design. And one of the things that I really like about the way that that particular chapter is set out is that it takes the time to look at those two words, which I think in both cases are words that I think we go into it thinking we know exactly what they mean, but then sort of on further examination, they're a little bit deeper. There's a little more depth to them, to both of those terms, in terms of really understanding what they refer to, and particularly in this context. So what I'd like to do is with let's see, I guess we have 8 of us, is we're just going to split into 2 groups. And one of the group's job is going to be to just focus on the first of those 2 words, which is instruction. And the other one is to focus on the second of the 2 words, which is the design piece. And, just take a little bit of time in the smaller groups, maybe, if there were things that you took away from the reading, you can certainly discuss those. Um, if you can talk a little bit about or contribute how whichever term you have maybe applies to your professional life, or how what experiences have you had with either one, with either instruction or design. What are the key things that make something either instruction or design? So just kind of have an open discussion about just the term that you have. When we come back together, I will have each group, not, I won't even call it a presentation, but I'll ask, at least somebody from each group to just kind of recap what your discussion was about and kind of what were the key points. To support those discussions, because we do have half the class that's not here, and I want them to be able to kind of follow along with what the discussions were. We're going to use a wiki page in Blackboard, and this is what the home page of it looks like. And I've already set up a sub page for each of the 2 groups. So once we divide up and you know what group you're in, both of these 2 have a page to use for kind of tracking your notes. So I'll just go into, for example, the group 1 notes page here. And, basically what it has, let me close this up so it's a little bigger. Um, what it basically has is just some general instructions. If one person in the group can kind of be responsible for taking the notes for the group, you would just hit this edit wiki content button like you did with the instructional design write-ups. That'll make this page editable. And then down here, I've just kind of given an open space for whatever notes need to be taken. You certainly don't have to type out everything that's discussed word for word, but you can maybe summarize it in bullet points as you go, or whatever you think makes the most sense in terms of however your discussion goes. What you're going to discuss, as I was saying a little before, is, in this case, it's for instruction. So what defines instruction? What are the things that instruction has to have in order to be considered instruction? The chapter in this case also talks about things that may seem like instruction but aren't quite. So how did they make those distinctions? What are the characteristics of instruction? What is it not? Sometimes when you're trying to define something, it can be useful to talk about the things that thing isn't, kind of compare it to opposites. Why is it important? Some of that may be pretty obvious, but in terms of thinking about our professional lives, and how does it apply to your own professional experiences? So um, again, with instruction, that one may be more of a given, but kind of really think about what you do, and is everything that you do, would everything you do be considered instruction? Do you engage in other types of similar activities that would not be instruction, and so on? So those are just some kind of guiding questions to help you with your discussion. You don't have to cover all of them. Everybody doesn't need to talk about every single one of those, but kind of let those give you some food for thought, and you can relate everything back to the reading, and so on as well. um I'm going to try something also with this, and I've never done this before with these breakout groups. And it may or may not work, and if there isn't somebody in a group that is able to do this, it's totally fine. But if somebody in each of the groups has a pretty straightforward ability to record your breakout session, that can just be done with a screen capture. If you have a screen capture app or something like that you can use, um, that would just give one more way for the folks who are not here tonight to kind of see what happened and be able to participate, at least as an observer, in the discussions. And that way, also, that might also take a little bit of the pressure off needing to type everything up if the actual discussion can be there. So, if that's possible, if there's somebody who has done that kind of a thing before, or has the know-how, or has the software available to do that, that would be great. And if that video, I mean, then that video could also be put right here on this page as well. I have some instructions up here about a couple of different ways to do that. If it's a case where the video is being saved right onto your local computer, you can actually just upload that file right onto this page when you're editing it. And there's some instructions about that. It might take a little longer, but another way to do it would be to throw the video up. If you've got like a YouTube account or something, throw it up there as like an unlisted video, and then just copy the link to that and put that on this page. And again, that may not be able to happen tonight, because I know that process takes a little while. But I'm just trying this to see if it's even feasible, to see if it works. Like I said, it would just give us one more kind of archive of the discussions tonight and how things went. um, but if all we are able to get is just the typed out notes, I'm fine with that too. So that's basically, this is the page where your group would be doing their work, and the page for design basically is the same thing, except obviously it's focused on the design word and not on the instruction word. But same thing. If there's somebody in the group that can make a video of the discussion, that's great. But at least have somebody that can be taking notes with the group. So that's going to be our first main activity tonight. And then we'll come back together and, like I said, do a quick debrief, have each group just summarize the main points that they came up with. I've got a space here, and I'll be the note taker for this. But once we kind of bring the two together, we're going to try to come up with kind of our own definition or description of instructional design. And then we'll move on to talking about some of the common elements that we saw across those instructional design models from last week. All right. So, questions about the activity itself. Going to split into two. One group has instruction, one group has design. Somebody should take notes in the wiki, at least written notes. If somebody can make a recording, that would be awesome too. But if not, don't fret it. Don't worry about it. And then we'll come back together and debrief from there. All right. So what I'm going to do then is get these breakout rooms going. So I'm just going to make 2 rooms, and just for simplicity, I'm just going to have the program assign your rooms. So 4 of you will end up in one room, 4 will end up in the other. If you end up in breakout room 1, then you would be doing the instruction piece, and if you're in breakout room 2, you would be doing design. And I'll check in right away with both groups to make sure that both groups know which word they're dealing with, and so on. All right. So, yeah, and time wise, I mean, I'll flip back and forth to kind of see. I'm thinking maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes on this. I don't think we're going to need tons of time. So I'll start checking in with groups maybe in 10 minutes or so. And if there's a conversation that's really going and it would be helpful to have a couple more minutes to wrap things up, then we'll hold off. But start with planning on 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes or so, and then we will go from there. All right, so this is ready to go on the breakout room. So you're going to get a notification and then you can just join the room. There's always a question with breakout rooms about how to leave them and come back to the main room, because it looks like the button that you would push is going to kick you out of the whole WebEx session, but it doesn't. If you're really concerned, you can just wait, and at a certain point, I will terminate the breakout rooms, and at that point, you'll automatically be kicked back into this room as well. So don't worry too much about that. And if for some reason you do get kicked completely out, then just log right back into WebEx, and I'll let you back into the room. All right, so yeah, so let's see what we can come up with about these 2 words, and then see what we can do when we put the 2 words together. All right, here we go. I can tell you right now before I start the sessions. So it looks like we've got Jesse, Stephen, Tate, and Teddy are in room 1. So that group would be doing instruction. And then Carly, Carrie, Claude, and Michael would be in room 2 doing design. So, all right, here it goes. I'm going to start the sessions and I will be checking in.